Before I could reinforce the outside of the fuselage, I had to clean it all up, which meant removing any glue and trimming all the edges. I'm taking my glue mixture and just coating the inside of the nose area, making sure I get into all the grooves. Cutting my paper ahead of time and then brushing it with glue and sliding it in place. Making sure that I push it down into all the grooves all the way up onto the wood nose in the front. And then flipping it over and doing the other side. It's important to work out as many of the air bubbles as you can, and to be able to access it, I had to cut a hole through the center of the fuselage from one chamber to the next. Using the camera like this actually came in handy. After I was done, I looked at the film and I could see that there were some areas that still needed pressed down because they had some bubbles. Small pieces of reinforcement can be done just like paper mache, dipping it into the glue mixture and scraping it off as much as possible. Corners are a little tricky. You have to really work them around to make sure there are no air bubbles. You can see it's pretty much covered everywhere, and after it dried I gave it another coat of glue just to make sure that it was totally sealed. Cutting the piece about 1.5 inches bigger than the side of the fuselage, and I'm doing actually 2 at a time. Cutting my relief cuts all the way around, and cutting out the corners so that they wrap nicely around. Making sure that the glue goes down into all the seams as much as possible. And then spreading out the fiberglass. This is actually a very light coat of fiberglass on the front of the nose because it is paper on both sides, inside and out. I threw a little fiberglass in there just for a little extra reinforcement because that part of the plane has to support the wing. Extra glue is not going to make it any stronger, it's just going to add weight. And any of the glue that I scrape off that has fiberglass strands in it, I work down into the seams. If you're unsure about any of these techniques that I'm using, I recommend you watch the earlier videos that I did, and may give you a little more insight into what I'm doing, because I'm giving more detail then. Each video I go, I leave a little bit more of the detail out, because I figure by now you have a pretty good idea what I'm doing. Adding a couple extra pieces on here of paper and glue just to reinforce it a little more in a key area. I laid the fuselage on its side so that I could work on the vertical stabilizer, the decorative and structural piece on the side. Using a little bit of extra glue so that I can form it around the shape. And same basic technique, I'm squeegeeing out all the extra glue, but I'm working this more with my hands, pushing down on the paper until it conforms to the shape. Then I'm brushing away all of the extra glue and working it down into the seams. If you take your time, you can get some pretty tight radiuses. I'm reinforcing the front edge with a sheet of fiberglass, which I normally don't use, but because this piece is vertical, it's a little easier to work with than the chopped strands. But it takes a little bit more work with the brush to get the strands all separated and to get it to lay flat.